Speaking of the college football playoff rankings, let's touch on those briefly before we get to some of these games. Not a ton of surprises, really. There's a few that we'll get to here, but 1 Ohio State, 2 Indiana, 3 Texas A&M, 4 Georgia, 5 Texas Tech, 6 Oregon, 7 Mississippi, 8 Oklahoma, 9 Notre Dame. That's one of the ones we got to dive into here. 10 Alabama, 11 BYU, 12 Miami, and then just to round out the 4 kind of on the outside looking in, 13 Utah, 14 Vandy, 15 Michigan, 16 Texas. Cole, issues, comments, concerns, questions?
Inside the top 10, it's very clear that they're finding a reason to put out Ole Miss. I think that's abundant. If they lose in the Egg Bowl, they want to say, you don't have a coach. We did this at Florida State. We're going to do it to you. So they moved them on out. Utah falling behind Miami is another interesting one because think they're trying to find a way to guarantee Notre Dame make the playoff, despite Notre Dame not having a signature win, which again, Notre Dame is playing like a top 10 team in college football. I want to make this abundantly clear. They are, but they don't have a signature win the way that BYU does. They actually have a lesser strength of record as BYU. So naturally, the brand does play a big deal. Miami has a better win, in my opinion, than Notre Dame at this point. So you add that into the conversation with the head-to-head narrative, you're trying to find a reason to put them into the playoff picture. So now Utah and Vanderbilt, 2 teams that very well could finish 10-2, are on the outside looking in. Did you notice that Texas only moved up 1 spot and Michigan moved up 2 spots?
Yep.
The committee is telling you, Texas, listen, guys, you had a big year. You had potentially 3 top 10 wins. You definitely have some things you can work on in the offseason, but it's not a bad year. Losing by 25 points to Georgia and then losing to a 3-9 potential Florida team, that's the reason you're not in the college football playoff. The reason we even gave you some benefit of the doubt was you scheduled a tough non-conference game and you only lost by 7 to Ohio State. That is clear as day what they're telling me, in my opinion, on what we're seeing for the college football playoff. So right now, I think that you got to look at 15 up. Those are the teams that are gunning for a college football playoff berth. And then Virginia and SMU, they're going to be the 2 representatives right now. And Tulane. Cool. Welcome to the party.
Yeah. We'll see if John Summerall departs at some point in the near future. Trying to see what else here. Yeah, obviously the committee is giving Vandy a bit of a chance. Like they're going to need some help. They're going to need some other teams, probably multiple teams to lose. The top 12 if they beat what is currently ranked number 19 Tennessee in Knoxville this weekend. And then Michigan, you beat the number 1 team in the country. Michigan should be in. The rest of their strength of schedule is not really that impressive. The road game against Oklahoma, while that was not a huge margin of victory, was still like, it's a good loss, I guess, on their record. And Texas, to your point, still alive there. Man, yeah, they're giving Notre Dame a lot of love. But again, like, I think this is something we've talked about here on the show a lot. They're going to find the excuse to put Notre Dame in. And as long as Notre Dame doesn't collapse and they only lose 2 games, they should be in a 12-team college football playoff every year. And should is maybe not the right word, but will. Yeah.
Let me ask you, how do you feel about where the playoff stands of who's on the outside looking in if BYU were to pull off an upset against Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship? Because now I don't think you can take out Texas Tech. They would have the head-to-head win in the season. So they're in. You would have 2 Big 12 teams in. Is the easier plan to say, we're going to take out Notre Dame because we're not putting in Miami? Or is the easier plan to say, well, Alabama still has to win the SEC title or they'd have 3 losses and we're not going to put them in?
Alabama with 3 losses would feel tough, especially considering I understand it's the Iron Bowl, Jordan Harris ghosts, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's still Alabama losing to what is considered a bad Auburn team. So I don't know if I'd consider that a quote unquote good loss for Alabama. If BYU were to do that and upend Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship, I think they do deserve to get in.
Well, they would. It'd be an automatic qualifier.
Of course. Then who do you bump?
But Alabama losing in the SEC title game, a game that wasn't promised, sitting at 10-3, that's the problem. So the easy one would be to end the narrative of we respect head-to-heads is take out Notre Dame. But Notre Dame would be on a 10-game win streak, the brand, the recognition. Is that the easy answer, or is that an answer that we're just not going to talk about because it's Notre Dame?
Hey, I'll get right back to the video, but first I do want to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper. Make sure that you are on the Sleeper app. We appreciate all of their support this football season. Use our code CFA for a 100% match up to $100. We will play the more or less game on Wednesday on the Power 2 live here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed and don't miss it. Make sure that you've already deposited and you're already good to go. While you're doing holiday shopping for everybody else, make sure you're on the Sleeper app taking care of yourself too. Check their terms and conditions because terms of use do apply. We appreciate Sleeper for their support.
I think they're not going to talk about it because it's Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Unfortunately.
The way that game goes in Atlanta for Alabama, if they were to lose, I think it's going to be really big. And I do think that the committee last year at least gave us a notion of we will not penalize you for losing your conference title game. Because SMU last season, remember, they were leading, they fell apart, Clemson won, but they only won by 3. Game-winning field goal to walk it off. If Alabama loses by 7, you have 4 wins against top 25 teams in the SEC with the 8th toughest schedule in college football. I don't think they penalize you in that standpoint. Now, if you lose by 21, all bets are off.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are once again going back to that conversation of what do you do if the whole BYU conundrum happens? The easy ploy is to say, sorry, Notre Dame, if we're going to respect head-to-heads and we're going to respect conference schedules, you're out, BYU's in. So what's interesting right now is that being in the top 10 does not guarantee, even with the win this weekend, that you're safe because of the BYU conundrum.
There's a lot of these 2-loss teams, too, that could make things interesting. Like, for instance, if Oregon were to somehow get upset by Washington this weekend.
Dude, they'd be out. If Michigan wins, because remember,
yep,
if Oregon wins and Michigan wins, Oregon goes to the Big Ten title game. If Oregon loses and Michigan wins, Michigan goes to the Big Ten title game. I don't think you can leave out the runner-up of the Big Ten.
I agree.
So that solves a problem right there. Then you go back to the whole conversation of what was the whole thing going into last week about Oregon? Does Oregon have a signature win? Yeah, it's against Penn State. Okay, well, Penn State hasn't hauled up its end of the bargain.
Yep.
Well, now USC is the signature win. Okay, but you also have a loss to Washington. Washington's a good team. Washington's a very solid team. You and I both said 9-10 win season was in the works for them this year. They win on Saturday. It's a 9-win season. But then you have to throw in, okay, well, Alabama's not being taken out. Oklahoma, in my opinion, if they're 10-2, they are probably the most deserving 2-loss team because of their schedule this season. So that's a lock on in. You're not penalizing a team like Texas Tech for being 11-1 in the regular season and then losing a conference title game. Oregon feels like a team that also needs to win this weekend simply because I think if you don't win and Michigan does, that takes your spot in the Big Ten.